Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. So today it's time to finally do part 3 of the hashtag Tarot FAQ started by Lisa Papez. I will have a link to her original video in the video description down below. And if you haven't watched part 1 and 2 of the Tarot FHQ series on my channel, then yeah, check them out because in those videos I talk about deck preferences and buying decks and answer all of Lisa's questions as well as the questions that I have added to that specific topic. So today it's all about reading style, and let's start right in. Of course, I will answer all of the questions that Lisa had answered as well in her video. And when you watch her video, you can find the questions that that she asked in the video description of her video. And yeah, when we come to that point where I answer the questions that came to my mind, I will say that. So the first question is, do you have a daily tarot practice? And if not, when do you read for yourself? So with a daily tarot practice, I'm not, normally I would have, not just tarot, but also sometimes oracle, depends on the deck that is calling to me and that I want to work with for 1 week and that I want to get to know deeper for 1 week. And I will post these daily messages also, or daily readings also on my Instagram profile. The thing is, I did those pretty regularly, and with them being posted on Instagram, this helped me to really do them every day because I knew that there are people out there waiting for me to post. Um, but the problem is now that university has started again for 2 weeks, and now it's the third week. I have such a full schedule that I work from morning 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. sometimes without any pause in there as well, so that I can come through all the stuff that they give us to learn and to understand. So, and I still want to do my YouTube videos, and that is actually quite a challenge to do those in that time schedule. So, with that said, as you probably see here, um, I haven't done one for these 1 or 2 weeks right now because Instagram is the first thing that suffers under my stress level because I don't want to give up YouTube. I still want to do those videos, and I'm not only having this channel but also German speaking reading channel that I do 3 to 4 videos per week. So, yeah. And if I'm not doing a post on Instagram, I'm not doing a daily reading for myself. When do I read for myself? Well, I have a monthly practice. On Samhain or Halloween, I always do my year ahead reading, where I pull a card for the year ahead in general, and then I pull a card for each of the month, beginning with November and ending in next year's October. And so I will pull out the card that I pulled for each month, um, and have it displayed so that I can see that next to the card that I have pulled for the whole year. And have a I have a photo on my phone of that as well, so that I don't forget. So that is that. And I will always use my Vampire Tarot or Tarot of Vampires by Ian Daniels. That is one of my first decks, and it fits perfectly into the Halloween spirit. And that is basically the use that this deck gets. I also have a monthly practice where I pull for each month, and this I do at the beginning of the month, a animal card to work with for that month. And that animal or that energy of that animal will accompany me through the month, will help me to get through the month, and I will work with that specific animal that I have pulled out of this deck for the month and get to know the spirit. And if I come by a challenging experience or problem, I always remember which card I drew, which animal I drew, and remember the keywords or the messages or something that, yeah, I associate with that animal to help me find a solution or to help me get through that. So this is, by the way, the Fauna Inspiration cards by Rebecca Lefevre and Phoebe Hunt. So that is the deck that I use for that. And also, for each month, I have started to pull a OM card, or at least either pull a card or really pull a OM stick out of my OM casting set. Because I really love the idea of trees and OMs, but I don't, yeah, I do that to study them actually, because in the OM world, I'm a real beginner and I really want to study them and take a deep dive so that I can use them like tarot or Lenormand for me. And so I pull a card for 1 month, and I have that month time to get to know that specific tree and that specific ohm, what it's about, what its history is, yeah, and what its meaning is, and all of that stuff. So I do my research the month over, and I also look at the meaning and how it connects to the month and the experiences that I did in the month. So that is my OM study. So, and also I do full moon readings and new moon readings as well, because the moon is a important yeah, an important thing to work with for me. So I always do those as well. And of course, if I have a question or a problem or a situation where I need some guidance or some insight, or I just want to do a reading, then I do that as well. So the next question, what's your go-to shuffle style? My go-to shuffle style is overhand shuffling. Um, I know that there are a lot of riffle shufflers out there, and I get that with riffle shuffling you can get a better mix into the deck, at least a lot faster than with overhand shuffling. With overhand shuffling, you really need your time to get a really good mix into them, and you can see that when you have a new deck that is in order, how long you need to shuffle overhand until you have a really good mix in there. And I have nothing against riffle shuffling. I actually love looking or watching videos, watching readings from people who riffle shuffle, and I always watch the shuffling part as well if they have it in the video and not cut out, because I love that sound that riffle shuffling does, and bridging as well. It is really calming for me. but I have two left hands. So every time that I tried to learn riffle shuffling, bridging, I don't even understand how that is possible. I can't at all. And riffle shuffling, it has to be a really thin and flexible deck, and then with some repeats, I can get it to riffle shuffle a little bit, but I'm left-handed. I have two left hands in that way, so I gave up on that. And my thing is overhand shuffling. And the other reason why I do overhand shuffle like this, I always do overhand shuffling from the side. There are some people that do it this way, which I only do when I have a deck that has two huge cards, so that I can't get my hand around when I do it from the side. Um, and there's another reason why I do overhand shuffling, which we'll get to in the last question of this video, which is a question that I came up with. So that is that. Next questions. How do you choose which deck you're going to work with? That is mostly intuitively. So for myself and my daily practice, if I do them, if I have time to do those on Instagram, um, I always will choose a deck per week, which I decide to work with, to spend time with, and to get to know better. Um, and with that, I always go intuitively what speaks to me at that moment, because I really need to be excited and interested in the deck that I work with for one week exclusively, because I really easily get bored, or at least want to explore every deck that I have in my collection at once. Sagittarius, I should say. So I really have to be interested and excited about that deck. And also with those, I always go seasonal as well. So the decks that feel more spring-like, I will work with in March, April, and May. The decks that feel more summery to me, I will work with in June, July, August, maybe. Then the autumn and Halloween decks, of course, in the month of October, November. Um, and the wintry Christmassy decks, at least for me, then in the December, January, February. And out of those decks that I categorized in the seasons, I will choose the one that speaks to me the most to work with in a specific week of that month. Um, if I read for others or for a specific topic, like over at my reading channel here on YouTube, which is German speaking, um, I always will choose the decks also that speak to me, sometimes even the decks that I have chosen to work with for that week and do my daily readings and stuff with. But also what feels right for me to for that specific topic of the reading. So I also categorize my decks in my head, at least, in like that works for love and relationship, that works more for business, career, money, and that works more for self-care and that. So not all of my decks, some decks I don't have a specific topic. They work for me like an all-rounder, but some I do have that, and so I will use the love decks for a love and relationship reading, and so on. And with others, I just pull decks that I feel drawn to, that I feel will fit and connect with that person. Um, yeah, so mostly intuitively. So next questions, do you purchase professional readings for yourself? I haven't yet, but I do consider getting some professional readings if I feel the need to and if I have the money for, um, because there are a lot of amazing readers out there that I really wanna, um, yeah, want to give something for their for their work and for their time and energy that they put into their YouTube channels, that they put into their side businesses. And I want to support those, as well as sometimes with reading for others. I don't have a problem at all. I get a message straight up. But with reading for me, sometimes it works. But sometimes, especially when it's a question about which decision should I take or what lies ahead, so that I can get a decision. Sometimes I struggle with getting a definitive answer, because even though I don't want to, I will read into the cards what I most like as a message. And then I struggle with, is this the message that I should get? Or that could also mean that. So sometimes I struggle with that when I read for myself. Surprisingly, I don't have a problem at all with that when I read for other people. So yeah, that is also a reason. So the last question that Lisa had was, do you use tarot for anything other than divination? And now I can show you guys some more stuff. And I have cheated a little bit, because I don't, I'm not only having tarot decks in here that I want to show you, but also some oracle decks, because my practice is really a mix between tarot and oracle and Lenormand. So the first thing is, and therefore I will use the Arcana of Astrology Oracle by Claire Goodchild. I use this deck as a normal oracle with keywords or with the energy that comes to my mind when I think about a planet or about a zodiac sign that is in here. But what I often use this deck for is as placeholders, um, or to key into, to show me the status quo, so to speak, of like what's going on in the moment in terms of astrology. So which phase of the moon do we have? In which sign is the moon in? Do we have a Mercury retrograde? So we'll pull out Mercury. And all of that. So every time I do a new moon or full moon reading, I will pull the full moon for full moon reading and the sign that the full moon is, for that at that time. And I will lay those cards either in the middle, or I will lay them aside. But I have that connection to that energy that I want to read about. Um, and I have that as a reminder to have that energy present, because the full moon has its own energy, the star sign that it's in has its own energy, and that combination means something to me as well. So I will always pull that meaning into the card, into the message of the cards as well. So to actually focus the reading on the specific topic. When I do my Mercury retrograde readings, I will pull out Mercury. I don't know if you already had him. So that I know, hey, this reading is about Mercury. I have its energy. There we have it. I have its energy present right now. So that is what I will often do. Sometimes I use those zodiac sign cards also to represent a person which I know the zodiac sign of. Um, so that is the first thing. The other thing is connection and communication to spirit, to the divine, to my spirit guides and that stuff. And therefore, I use, for example, these are not exclusively the decks that I use. There are others in my collection, but I just pull one to show you guys. The Starseed Oracle by Divine Essentials for that, because I also work at least a little bit with Starseed energy. So I will use that to connect with the star seeds, with my spirit guides, but also with the universe in general, and get some messages from them and communicate to them as well. A tarot deck that I use for that, and again, it is not the only one that I use for that, but one that I love to use for that is the Shadowscapes Tarot, one of my absolute favorite tarot decks, by Stephanie Puman Law, and the guidebook is by Barbara Moore. This just feels spirit-like to me, and I have talked about this deck also um, in the tag that Jen over Jen's Balance Tarot did a while ago, like balancing the deck scales or something like that. You can find it in my VR playlist as well. This was one of the decks that I have shown you guys and chosen for the element of spirit. And also with so many details and so many things going on in those images, you can quite easily read them intuitively and get some messages out of that as well from spirit, or from your spirit guides. Because oftentimes one thing will pop out, and another time with the same card, another thing will get in the foreground and will draw the attention to it. So it's quite nice for that. So that was that. The next thing is past life readings or connecting with ancestors, karmic readings in that way. Therefore, I have pulled the Mary L. Tarot by, I always forget her name, Marie White. This is a deck that I have a very personal connection to, that we really developed that special bond and that special relationship with. And it feels really ancestry like, and really past life like, if that makes any sense. It feels to me really impactful. It has a really strong, almost like fiery energy to it. And I have done some ancestor readings with it for myself. And man, these were powerful and intense as nothing I have experienced. It was amazing. And I still can remember the first ancestor reading that I did, and this was, I think, over a year ago now. So they're really impactful. So yeah, so I used that as well for tarot and for ancestor and past life readings. The next thing is also like if I need some motivation, if I lack in that motivation, if I'm frustrated, if I want to give up, or also if I have a blind spot that I don't want to look at. That is the thing where I use tarot as well, and especially my Badass Baby Unicorns Tarot. This is by, oh my gosh, I can't remember what this is by. I think I have the business card in here. By Our Daily Magic, Kai Cole. There we go. And even though this seems pretty cutesy because in each and every card there is a unicorn, it has light and pastel colors to it. But let me tell you, this deck is one of the fiercest decks that I have in my collection. It has its own character. It's self-confident as fuck. It doesn't shy away to give you the message that you need, but you don't want to hear, as direct as it can. It kicks butt. and it's pretty temperamental as well. So if you aren't ready, or if you try to um, put a little bit of a positive tweak onto them, then this deck says, well, you're not interested in hearing my message, so I'm not interested in working with you. So yeah, and this is really good for that, showing you the blind spot that you don't want to look at. And that is often the reason why it's blocked or why it's not going forward. But also to give you that motivation of, you know what, just give a shit about it and move on, stay on your way, stay on your course, you will get that. Another deck that I really love for that kick in the butt and that self-confident boost and that motivation is the Bad Bitches Tarot by Anthony. I don't have that out right now because otherwise this video would be hours long, but that is also a deck that I want to mention. And the last thing is I also use Oracle and Tarot decks for self-care, body acceptance, and self-love as well. And one of the Oracle decks that I use for that, which is one of my favorite oracles, is the Naked Truth Oracle by Hand Me That Pencil. This has nudity in it, so if you have a problem with that, if you can't handle nudity, then skip forward. But in this deck, every person is nude, but not in a sexual way. It feels pretty natural. And there is a lot of body diversity in there, a lot of different body shapes. And this also has some challenging keywords as well. And so I really love that for, yeah, self-acceptance, self-care. It has a little potion section in here. It feels pretty practical as well. So it also gives you a message of what you need to do. Like with leap, and then we have elevate, rise to the top, the potion of being brave. The plant on here, like bold, open now, and hard, rise, perform under pressure. This always reminds me of Aquarius. I always get Aquarius energy from that card. Tune in, vibrational connection, water lily, feminine spirit, enlightenment, illumination, potion, purity. So I really love that for self-care, self-love, and body acceptance. Because this is more of a tarot FHQ normally. I also have pulled a tarot deck. This is the Whispering Spirits Tarot by Joanna Nelson. And I think her decks are pretty amazing for self-care, because they have this softer color palette. They have this kind of cutesy art style to them, but they don't shy away to, they're not over the top cute, so they still give you the tarot message that you need, and also some challenging messages as well, but in a more gentler way. So it's not like with some decks when you get the tower, it's like, oh, everything is fine and beautiful. Well, the tower has a challenging aspect to it. And it says that the tower is challenging, but it's not saying it direct in your face, but in a gentler way. It's like you're speaking to maybe your grandma or your grandpa, where they often like they give you the advice that you need, and they say when something maybe doesn't feel right or is maybe a wrong way to approach a thing, they give you um, their wise opinion about that, but they're not saying it like, well, why did you do that? That is, of course, the wrong way to go, and how stupid can you be, and you need to work on that and that, and the tower is falling apart and everything will be broken. But it will say, well, look at this way, maybe consider getting like in that way more that is better for you. And well, there is maybe a little bit of a shake up, but you can get over that. And so, and that softer tone is what I need when I do self-care reading, because most of the times I'm not really in that state when I do those, to get really harsh critique or a harsh, direct, in your face message. But I still want to get a message that I can work with, and not that and that can recognize the shadow or challenging aspects, and not that every card is just, well, everything is fine. Well, it's not if I do a reading. Most of the times, at least. So yeah, also her decks are really good for inner child work, so I will also do that with that deck as well. All right, so now we have 4 questions that I had that came to my mind. So the first one is spreads or freestyle. Let's just pull the Shadowscapes Tarot. So for me, because the whole cartomancy thing started for me with Lenormand. Lenormand was the first system that I learned and that I have used for a long time before I started diving into tarot. And the reason for that is that I found tarot always fascinating. And I got a tarot deck, the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith tarot starter kit, from a bookshop here in Germany. But that book wasn't really helpful. And for a total beginner, I was like, well, these cards are fascinating, but I can't read with them. The book had complete different messages for one card, and it was just so difficult for me to get a message. I was like, well, if this card could mean this, that, or that, how can I know what this card means and what the message is for me? And I was totally overwhelmed by it. Um, so maybe I wasn't ready at that point. So, but that whole cartomancy thing really fascinated me still, and it really frustrated me that I wasn't able to read. Um, I really doubted myself at that point as well. And I thought, well, maybe this is not for me, even though I find it really fascinating and I really want to. Maybe I just don't have the ability to do so. And then um, I came about a YouTube channel, a German reader who did readings. And I watched her readings, and she used Lenormand a lot of the times. And so while watching her readings, I learned Lenormand besides that, because Lenormand was so simple. It just was like you have one thing on that card, and that thing means this, this, and this, and finish. So it was a lot easier, and I learned it besides I watched it. It wasn't really my intent to learn Lenormand, but after watching a lot of her readings, um, and when she did another reading and she turned the Lenormand cards over, I was like, okay, this is the message. This card means this card means this, all right. And then I was at a point where I was like, well, I guess I have learned Lenormand out of that. So Lenormand started it all. And with Lenormand, you don't have a lot of spreads. You use the cards in a combination way, like 3 cards or 9 cards, or the Grand Tableau even. And so that still mirrors itself when in my tarot practice. So when I started tarot, that influence of how you read Lenormand um, was with a tarot as well, and how I used the tarot cards. So I didn't use a spread at all. I just did Maybe I had a question, I shuffled the cards, I pulled three cards and read them in combination like I would a Lenormand card, just with tarot meanings and maybe diving deeper into the imagery, because tarot is a little bit deeper for me. Not necessarily, but it's not as quick and it's as direct in messages. It can be, of course, but that is another discussion. Or I would do, I don't know if I can get that in the viewfinder, no, maybe a 6 card or a 9 card. So it's just free flow. Oftentimes I also will do a combination of tarot and other cartomancy systems. So that is that. What has changed for me, I will always do free flow on a question. I don't use a lot of spreads, but Boho Tarot on her Instagram channel always posts the amazing 3 card spreads, um, like this one, and I will like them and save them. And when I feel that one topic is really feels like I need to hear that message, because I have done a lot of readings that center around a specific topic, like being authentic, and that advice comes up in 2 or 3 readings or even more readings in 1 or 2 weeks. And I see a spread of hers that is about being authentic, or giving a shit about what other people think or so, then I will use that to dive deeper into that aspect of my free flow readings when it's a topic that comes up, or when I just feel drawn to a specific spread. So I love hers as well. But that is actually the only time that I use a spread. For me, it's all about free flow, how the cards are interacting with each other and with the context of the question, how they interact with other systems. And yeah, so that is that. It's probably the influence of Lenormand that I started with Lenormand, where there aren't actual spreads. Then the question, do you combine different deck types? And I have answered that partly in the last one. Yes, I do. For example, I love to combine different deck types or cartomancy systems, and I probably in most of my readings, like 90% of my readings, I will do that. Either combining tarot with oracle, or oracle with Lenormand, or all 3 together, because I really find that they they um they work so well together, and every deck gives something else to the table, another perspective, another viewpoint, another way to look at a thing, another way to give you a message. And in the end, you have this huge look at a situation, and it all really perfectly melds together. So I love using different cartomancy systems together. For example, for my full moon readings, I use this tarot deck. This is my full moon reading tarot deck. This is the Dark Days Tarot by Ren McMurdo. And I will combine that with Declare the Lune Lenormand by Anatolian. And now there is only an oracle missing. I will use the Moonlight Oracle by Tatiana Vedenkina. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And that is how most of the readings look like for me. I will have either a tarot and a Lenormand, or a Lenormand and an oracle, or a tarot and an oracle, or all 3 for one question or for one reading. Because as I said, for me, they all have a different way to communicate their message and to look at a situation. And so they really um, they really give you that whole, in combination, they really give you that whole image or look at a situation. So for me, tarot is really deep diving, um, and yeah, really intuitive, deep diving. Well, not really intuitive, actually. It's more, I don't know how I describe it. Like they all three have different personalities to them, and how they give you a message, how they communicate a message, and how they look at a situation. I've said this 3 times right now. I need to stop rambling. I can't really find a word to describe how they feel to me. Maybe I do another video all around this topic, when I don't struggle so much with finding the right words and finding what I want to say. But this is what I do a lot of the times. Like we have Spider Woman, she who creates from a central source, but it's also for connection. And then we have the Two of Cups, which is also about connection and connecting on that central inner core level, actually, as well. Creating a bond, creating a relationship. Um, and then we have the Ring from Lenormand and the Scythe and the Mice. So maybe you're afraid of diving really deep into that connection and create that really stable bond with somebody because you have been hurt or something has been cut away. Um, So, but you need to work on that. You need to create and find your inner center so that you can connect to somebody else, which will be pretty useful and will lead to a successful relationship. You just need to let go of those old wounds that don't serve you any longer. For example. So, and there you can see how amazing they interact with each other. And this wasn't planned. I haven't shuffled them or put cards out. This was just like how they were in the boxes and the cards that were underneath the deck. So there you can see how perfectly that works. So let's pull these back. And then we have less or more cards for one reading, for one question, or for one spread position. So for me, most of the times less is more. So as I said, with those 3 card spreads with Lenormand, I don't do a lot of crown tableaus. I really do a lot of 3 cards, 4 cards, 6 cards, maybe a 9 card, but that is it. With Oracle, 1, 2, 3 cards, and with tarot as well, 1, 2, 3 cards. That is it. I'm not a fan of huge spreads or of pulling, I don't know, 20 cards for one question. But in general or in total, then because I do those deck combinations, I will have maybe 1 tarot card from a headline, 2 or 3 oracle cards for an additional message, and then maybe 3 or 4 Lenormand cards. So I have 7 to 10 cards on the table for one reading. So that is that. It depends also on the question, and on how direct the messages are coming through. Sometimes I have 3 cards on the table and the message is so clear that I don't think when I pull more cards that that I will benefit from that or that I really need that. Sometimes I have 5 or 6 cards on the table and there are still 2 options or so, And so I pull a clarifier card and see what comes next. So it depends. All right, so the last question is, how do you choose the cards that you lay out after shuffling, aka cutting the deck after shuffling and pulling the cards from that cut? Or do you pull the cards from the top of the deck, from the bottom of the deck, or do you look out for jumpers? For me, when I'm shuffling, I'm overhand shuffling, and that is the reason why I love to look out for jumpers. Or maybe when I don't get one, for cards that really stick out. And so I will pull those because I'm a really indecisive person. And so that I can be really sure that this is the card that wants to show itself. Because when I pull, or when I shuffle, 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 and then there you have a jumper. And then there comes the point where you think like, okay, you feel when the cards are shuffled right and when they want to show up. Sometimes I do that also, and sometimes it's quite easy for me to feel that. But in other times when I'm really stressed out, and really in my head, then I'm like, okay, I'm shuffling. Okay, I think I feel I'm at the right point right now. Well, maybe don't. What if I don't feel? Well, I do another shuffle. And so I really struggle with that sometimes when I'm really in my headspace. And so that is why I look at that. Also, if a card sticks out, like maybe this does, sometimes I will see, yes, that feels right, that wants to show. Sometimes I feel like, well, that just shows because this is what shuffling is. And even with jumpers, sometimes I feel like when it's an actual jumper that wants to show itself. And sometimes they're just cards flying out because it was a bad shuffle. But I have a feeling for that. So that is how I pick my cards. Another thing that I really like to do is when I have my cards pulled for the reading, I always love to look at the bottom card of the deck. Not that I pull it necessarily into the reading, but I will remember what was on the bottom, or at least the energy of that card. And sometimes I pull it into the reading or on top of the cards and the messages that I got. And sometimes I don't, but I really pay attention to the card that is that is under the deck when I finish shuffling. So that was it, you guys. This was yes, part three of the tarot #tarot FHQ. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful. Let me know down in the comments if you also did a VR to this, or if you plan on doing one, or if you don't have a YouTube channel. I'm really interested to hear your answers to these questions, or at least one or two questions that you want to answer. I would really love to hear your thoughts and your answers for those questions. So feel free to put those in the comments. Also, don't forget to watch part 1 and 2. You will find those in the playlist of the VRs that you will see here in the end screen. And I will also have a link to those in the video description down below as well. And also watch the original video over on Lisa Papez's channel, which I will have a link in the video description. And lastly, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that you don't miss any of the other videos and new formats that are coming up. And yeah, so thank you for watching. And thank you to all of my subscribers. I really appreciate every single one of you. It always makes me happy when I see that somebody has commented or has subscribed. And yeah, so thank you for that. Until next time. Bye.